Culture is such a huge part of all of us. And while it has the power to keep us separated as humans, it also has the power to bring us together. And you are here watching this video because you understand the importance of learning about and respecting the culture of the Guatemalan people before coming to the country and engaging with its communities. In this presentation, I will be discussing some of the cultural and linguistic differences of the country of Guatemala, as well as some background and history on the country. I will begin by emphasizing that Guatemala is a beautiful country. It is rich in its tropical landscapes, such as jungles, beaches along the coast, mountains, volcanoes, lakes. It has rich soil that is perfect for agriculture and is ranked highly in its biological diversity, with an average temperature of 75 degrees, naming the country of eternal spring. It is also rich in its Mayan roots, which is reflected in the culture in both urban and rural areas, though mostly rural. Guatemala has some of the largest and most fascinating Mayan ruins in Latin America, like the Mayan ruins of Tikal, where this ancient temple is shown, and is one of the 3,000 remains of the Mayan city of Yaxmutal, the capital of one of the most powerful ancient empires of the Maya from 200 to 900 AD. You will be able to see the intersection of Mayan influence and Spanish colonial influence in the culture, history, and language of the country of Guatemala, specifically in Antigua, where this is very prevalent. Some demographics about Guatemala, according to the Central Intelligence Agency and the World Culture Encyclopedia, is, as obviously known, the country's capital is Guatemala City, or El Ciudad de Guatemala. The population of Guatemala is about 17 million. The majority of the population are considered mestizos, or Amerindian or mixed Amerindian Spanish. The Mayan Empire was overruled by Spanish conquistadors in 1523, and the power was shifted to the Spanish. But Mayan population and culture remains strong in mostly rural areas, but throughout the entire country. The Mayan population has distinct groups, mostly in western highlands, such as the Quiche, the Cachical, and Mam. Ancient cultures and traditions are maintained by these communities, and many of them only learn Spanish if they go to primary school and are taught Spanish as a second language, if at all. There is an extreme wealth gap between the rural and urban people, though there's also poverty in urban areas as well. Most of the mestizos who are relatively wealthy occupy the cities and surrounding agricultural plains of Guatemala, and they are known in Guatemala to be Latinos, mixed-race descendants of Spanish colonizers, and they still hold the power in the country. And this could be considered a deeply systemic socioeconomic issue in this country. Rural communities, both indigenous and not, face poverty, in many cases, extreme poverty. Over half of the country lives below the national poverty line of $2 a day, and the indigenous people are disproportionately affected by this, according to the Borgen Project that collects data and information about culture and demography in Latin American countries. Rural people from the highlands often come to the city to sell and exchange goods like produce and artisanal items to locals and tourists. And these economic exchange dynamics between rural and urban people continue to shift as the country faces developing and modernizing of its economy. Rural and urban areas do intersect both culturally and economically. There was a civil war in Guatemala that began around 1960 between the wealthier urban Latinos and the rural Mayans. The Latinos had the upper hand, of course, because they controlled the government and military. The war ended with the casualty toll and/or immigration of about 1 million, and after 36 years of civil war, as of 1996, the country is still healing socially, economically, and politically, though there is still animosity between the rich and the poor. The country is developing currently as a presidential representative democratic republic. Since the beginning of the New World Order in Guatemala in 1524, Guatemala has had a developing culture with strong Mayan and Spanish influences in a variety of ways. So let's start with language. The official language of Guatemala is Spanish. It's mandated in public schools, though there are about 28 other known indigenous languages in Guatemala. Many of these languages are Mayan languages, but not all. There are other indigenous languages as well. You may hear up to about 20 different languages in a trip to Guatemala. Religion is another huge part of the culture of Guatemala. It is another way that Guatemala intersects culture from both Mayan belief systems and the Roman Catholic influences from the Spanish colonialization. They combined in many ways, taking beliefs and traditions from both and heavily influencing the overall culture of Guatemala. There are differences in religion throughout the country, as some more rural areas occupied by indigenous people stick to their traditions and customs. And urban cities and non-indigenous families and communities generally incorporate both Roman Catholic, Christianity, and Mayan influences and tradition and custom into their faith. But overall, God and religion are very important to the Guatemalan people. Food, my favorite. So corn is a sacred staple in Guatemala and to the Guatemalan people. You will often see Guatemalan women in the streets, both in traditional Mayan outfits and in modern streetwear, more westernized streetwear, slapping corn tortillas together throughout the days and cooking them on an open fire over a comal, which is kind of like a stove. It's a big circular stove. Other staples include black beans with crema, which is similar to sour cream, but it's thicker. Eggs, plátanos, which is fried plantains. Chicken is the most common meat in Guatemala, which is used in a lot of thick stews, such as pepián and caldo de pollo. A lot of herbs and spices and seasonings are used in Guatemala. Seafood is abundant in mostly the coastal regions, and fruit and produce are abundant nearly everywhere because of, then again, that rich soil. Bakeries are everywhere in Guatemalan towns and cities, and coffee is also a huge industry in Guatemala and is also a huge part of the Guatemalan culture and a lot of what brings in tourists, the bakeries and the coffee. There are a lot of popular dishes such as churrasco, which is charcoal grilled tenderloin steak, chiles rellenos, which is roasted fresh peppers stuffed with a variety of ingredients such as melted cheese and meat. Family and friends gather around food, so food is a very important part of the Guatemalan culture. In terms of people, customs, and traditions, Guatemala is a very colorful country, as in the buildings, the art, the dress, the decorations, and the artisanal items like baskets and blankets found in markets all tend to bring a lot of life and color to the culture of Guatemala, heavily influenced by its Mayan roots. Traditional dress, which is called corte, is worn by a lot of Mayan women. Camisa and falda, a shirt and a long skirt or dress with a lot of different patterns and colors, and they're just beautiful. Festivals and big celebrations are a big deal and happen often in Guatemala, such as on September 15th, which is their Independence Day, where the streets are almost all blocked off and full of families in colorful outfits and traditional and are just fun, creative costumes, and they're dancing and eating and celebrating. It's a lot of fun. Some things that I believe to be important to know before traveling to Guatemala is it's important to be conscientious of these social issues that are being faced in Guatemala and how they may appear different relative to the United States, such as higher human trafficking rates and the presence of femicide, as well as other serious crimes that are ongoing social issues as a result of a developing country and government and high poverty rates, though these issues tend to affect the Guatemalan people more than tourists and visitors. There are many activists that are continuing to organize and demonstrate in order to bring awareness and fight against these issues. Some things that are important to know in terms of relations and dynamics in Guatemala is there's a stronger sense of male dominance in Guatemala than in the United States, more so within rural and indigenous communities and within more traditional families. But overall, men are the heads of the households and families. And while we might disagree with this, it is important to understand in the context of their culture and be respectful of their customs and dynamics. Some ways that this might show up is women have to walk around men while they're in conversation sometimes. And other times it is custom for a woman to tap you on the shoulder and then you tap them back on the shoulder rather than shaking their hand as you would with a man. The Ladino mestizo people often will greet you with a hug and a kiss, often on the left cheek, I believe. And while we may be a little thrown off by this, it's important to embrace it. It's just part of their very friendly culture, and it's very common within Latin American cultures as well. People are very friendly and will often invite you in for drinks and food. It is polite to accept these gestures, while if we decline, it's not considered rude. Um, and when walking down the street, people will often smile and say things like buenas, which means good day. And when walking into someone's house, it is often custom to say permiso, which translates to may I, and to which the usual response would often be por favor, sí, meaning of course, come in. Gratitude, respect, generosity, kindness are key aspects in relations in Guatemalan culture. They are just very kind, warm people, and you just kind of fall in love with them the moment you start to engage with them. According to other Guatemalan visitors, Guatemalan culture, um, because of the high poverty rates, can often live very modest, simple lives and seem happy doing so, with a strong presence of faith and kindness. Though this doesn't account for all of the Guatemalan people, as there are wealthy Latinos with more westernized customs and ways of life. And there are higher rates of violent crime as well, as like theft, from guerrilla groups to human and drug trafficking, as spoken about before. But overall, Guatemalan people are known to be very kind and extremely hardworking. But some things that have been said about Guatemalan people is that they also have been known to lack punctuality, as in everyone tends to be a little late. And they can also be flaky with plans without any ill intent. Those are just some things that have been said about Guatemalan culture relative to Americans, who tend to be very on time and planny in terms of their schedules. But overall, Guatemalans are very welcoming and kind, warm people with beautiful culture in a beautiful country. And as long as you are respectful and considerate of their country, culture, and people, they will welcome you with open arms, according to so many travelers from traveling vlogs such as Lifey and Adventure Life, to name a few, who have been there to connect with the people and or make positive changes. And they not only fell in love with the country, but felt as though they were blessed by the experience of Guatemalan culture and people. And I myself can relate to that in all of my visits to Guatemala.